My name is Nabil El-Garouri. I am the Executive Director of CAMFT, and it's my privilege to welcome you to a lunch and learn with BBS Executive Officer Kim Madsen. Hi, Kim.
Hey.
Okay. Can you say that one more time? Your volume just popped out for a second.
Oh my gosh. Hi.
There we go. Hello. So I'm going to continue with my introduction for a second. So while this is not a CE event, please visit the CAMFT On-Demand Library for a variety of recorded clinical, legal, and ethical workshops to earn your CEs. And that website is camft.org/self-study. And I believe Marlene will be posting that in the chat. We're scheduled to go for a half hour, but given the number of questions we have and Kim's graciousness, we're going to go for a full hour. And then so that will try to answer as many questions as possible, as well as when this video is done and we post it online, this will be eligible for a CE workshop. So because this is exactly on laws, so this definitely is content relevant. So please use the Q&A feature. It should be in the bottom of your screen. We are not going to answer all questions, unfortunately. There are already 33 questions in there. So I highly recommend you use the like button so you can bump up items. And I'm going to do my best to make sure those questions are answered. Last year, CAMFT attorneys answered over 18,000 legal, ethical, and licensure questions. If you're a member of CAMFT, remember you can call CAMFT at and talk to one of our attorneys. So so I'm going to introduce now Kim Madsen. She's the executive officer. Thank you very much for coming.
Oh, thank you for having me, Nabil. It's great to be with CAMFT, and even virtually. This is awesome. I missed the spring conference.
Oh, I know. We would have just had the conference, and
yeah,
your presence is always a pleasure there. Okay, we're going to start. We're going to start with a poll. So would you post the poll, please? So I'm asking the Zoom gods to post the poll. And the question is, what is your licensure status? Are you a licensed MFT, a registered associate MFT, or a student? So please submit your response, and that will help us know who the audience is. So right now, just so we're looking, we're at 424 participants, which is great.
And 40 questions.
And 40 questions already.
Oh man, okay.
So, okay. So let's see what the results are. Okay, so 50% of those who responded are licensed MFTs, 27% are registered associates, and 23% are students. So we're, right, of the people who responded, we're half and half. Great.
That's great.
Okay, so that means we have a lot of supervisors and people worried about CE, as well as people worried about getting licensed. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to go ahead and start. I'm going to start with the questions that people are liking. So we're going to just go to that. Okay?
Okay. That's great.
Actually, first, there is one thing I want to talk about, because I'm sure it's going to be a question here, which is just yesterday, there is a big update. So Kim, would you share that update?
So I'm very happy to share with you that yesterday the board received a waiver to allow video conferencing in all practice settings. Existing law currently only allows for that in an exempt setting, but the waiver will grant the video conference to all settings, private practice included, and the waiver is good for 60 days. So it looks like July, maybe there might be an expiration date.
Roughly 4th of July. Roughly 4th.
Yeah, right around there.
So what that means is supervision can now be done remotely.
Correct.
Oh my God. Thank you.
Yeah, very happy that one got through. So it's the first of 5 or 6 waivers that we've submitted. So we're doing what we can to help everybody out.
Okay. So actually, as we are answering questions, if BBS has submitted a waiver relevant, let us know.
Well, I'll share
and
that.
Then we'll tell people to make sure. Now, I can tell you for a fact, BBS sends us information regularly. So we get updates like as they're getting on the website. So we know quickly when these things happen. So actually, one thing I want to mention before we get started with questions is the difference between CAMFT and the BBS. So CAMFT is the California Association of Marriage and Family Therapists. We are a member organization representing MFTs. And the BBS is our regulatory body that regulates the profession and is meant to protect the public. Would you add anything else, Kim?
I think that accurately explains the difference. I think within that, the differences, we frequently find common ground and issues to work on, and we can disagree, but we can agree, and more often than not, we tend to agree, and we accomplish really great things together.
Yeah. So let's start with the first question from Ann Porter, which 32 people have asked. What is the processing time for BBS to approve applications for the MFT exam? Before COVID-19, it was approximately 104 days. How many days is it now?
The days I can't tell you, but I can tell you the week that they're working on. Right now, we are working on applications received January 24th through February 10th. So COVID's provided a really good opportunity to allow staff to completely focus on their work uninterrupted and get moving through the applications. Additionally, just before COVID, we hired 2 additional staff members, actually 3, for the LMFT unit. So they're up and running, and they are cranking through the applications as fast as they can.
So, and where can they find that information?
So we post our processing times weekly on our Facebook page. So subscribe to our Facebook page, and you'll see all that updated information. Typically, it goes up every Wednesday.
So that is BBS California or?
Board of Behavioral Sciences, California. And I provided a link to Marlene earlier to our Facebook page. So
look on the webinar chat, and we will post this in information afterwards. But if you Google the Board of Behavioral Sciences California on Facebook, I would recommend, if you are in the process to get licensed, become a fan and get their updates. Okay, The next question is, will the live scan requirement for BBS be waived?
No, it's still a public protection issue for us, and that's our role. We have, I provided a link to Marlene earlier. There are live scan entities open right now. You can search this DOJ link by county, and you can find an open business. I was in one earlier this week. They're observing the social distancing 6-foot CDC guidelines, so you can still get your fingerprints taken.
Okay. So that is, we answered that question. How is the licensure exam process going to be impacted by COVID-19 and social distancing protocols?
So I think what you're seeing is, the Pearson VUE, our exam vendor, it had to shut down, much like everyone else. They have reopened some sites in California, but what they've done is reduce the number of seating available within those sites to account for social distancing. So for example, if a Pearson VUE site had 30 seats, now they only have 15. So you're still able to schedule, you're still able to get in. We're deemed essential for licensure, so the testing is still available. And recently what we agreed to do is open up third-party sites available for additional testing venues. These sites are typically at colleges or adult learning centers, technology school centers. Again, these sites will observe social distancing, the 6-foot radius, and as candidates go to Pearson VUE and look online to schedule for their exam, they'll see those sites pop up. So I'd recommend people just to try to schedule. I got a list yesterday that indicated we had 700 registrants for the month of May.
Wow.
For scheduling the exam. So it's happening.
March and April were basically shut down.
Nothing, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, and I just want to make sure, so I don't get this question again, the exam requirement is not going to be waived.
No.
That's a protection of the public requirement.
It is, and it's the only method that we have right now to demonstrate to the public that that individual has met minimum competency. So until that changes, exams are here with us for a while.
Okay, we're getting a lot of questions about option 2. So let me ask the question: how can we record our family child hours at this time when we are conducting telehealth for option 2? Or a related question is, how can people under option 2 keep counting hours when their telehealth bucket is full?
Exactly. It's a challenge. Option 2 is not going to be waived. It does end at the end of this year. What I would encourage people to do is consider reworking your options under option 1. Less restrictive. It's open-ended. It's only 1,750 clinical hours. Those all can be telehealth hours. So you may find that you're not losing as many hours under option 1 as you think you might if you're counting them option 2, but I would encourage people to consider that option.
And let me just clarify, when you submit your application, you are intended to have had the 2,250 hours that are required for MFTs and 3,000 for counselors, right? So you have to have all those hours in your application. Okay.
Yeah.
But you could still be accruing hours while you're waiting, and those hours can be used if you realize, oops, we're not counting these 50 hours.
Correct. And that's what I would strongly encourage anybody putting in their application. Continue to gain those hours, get the supervision that goes with it. So in the event that some hours are disallowed, you can resubmit hours and you can still move forward in the process, and it's not overwhelming.
And option 2, if your application is received by the end of the calendar year,
yes,
be considered?
Yes, okay. Absolutely.
Okay. So we've answered a ton of option 2 questions. I hope that is meeting the attendees' needs. Let's see. Will BBS be working towards allowing you to take the exam from home?
No.
No, but the alternative sites, these third-party vendors.
Yeah.
These third-party vendors. And go online right now. In fact, if I were you and you have approval to take an exam, I'd be logging on right now. Keep listening and log on. Okay. So we answered that one. Okay. Okay. So now I'm going to go back over here to some other questions that I got before. There's a lot of questions here. How has COVID-19 affected the application process to get your associate? And then,
yeah, well, we're all working remotely. They're processing applications as I speak. CAMFT associate registrations right now, they're working on applications that we received the 19th of April through the 25th. Fortunately, I imagine that we're going to continue at that pace. And even with the, increased applications we'll get at graduation season, primarily we're able to do that because I now have 2 people processing those applications. So you might see a slight delay with the volume that we get in the spring and early summer, but nothing significant.
So submit your application as soon as you can when you graduate. Oh, and didn't you tell me earlier about the transcript?
Yes. We've set up a method to accept transcripts and program certifications electronically. We've got more than 20 schools enrolled in that program. If you're not sure what your school is doing, contact them and invite them to explore the possibility of submitting that information online. We put some information out on a listserv today about how to enroll in the e-transcript program. We are already receiving transcripts. I can tell you Pepperdine just submitted their whole class. So they're coming through, and it's a really nice way to take that and the program cert and a digital signature. So we're all good with all of that. So contact your schools if you aren't clear what they're doing.
Okay, I have another question for MFT trainees. How should we be logging hours, as individual or telehealth?
Whatever your supervisor is going to approve.
Okay, so talk to your supervisor. This is
Mm-hmm.
answering
Mm-hmm.
Susan Krebs' question. Um, I don't know if this is a BBS question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. What are the requirements in terms of HIPAA compliance and telehealth, and when will that change? I don't think that's a BBS question, is it?
It's not really a BBS question. I would look to your association for best practices, resources that way. If you want to look at the HIPAA law, there's resources there. We have some guidelines in our regulations about compliance in terms of security and such. But that, it's ironic. Telehealth was on our radar. We thought we were behind the curve, and have decided we're going to set up another telehealth committee to look at everything and expand and to provide better guidance. With COVID, we're going to be looking at that. Hello.
You know, and for everyone listening, CAMFT is going to be making suggestions and talking to BBS. Luckily, we do have a very good collaborative relationship, and so we're going to really talk about some of the telehealth challenges that we've experienced, that our members have experienced. And this is obviously, I mean, you can't do it now, but
No.
in a post-COVID world, it's obvious we're going to address telehealth.
I think COVID's exposed all types of opportunities.
Yeah.
If you'd have asked me in January, could I have transcripts? I'd have said, oh no, it's, days, weeks, years away, and we're doing it. So it's pushing creativity and thinking out of the box to the maximum.
Okay, so there are some specific questions. Can we?
Fire away.
I know. Well, there's a lot of questions that I don't know really are BBS questions. I think one of the important things to remember is that BBS is the state regulations on practice, and some of the laws that govern practice are federal. HIPAA is a federal law. So HIPAA really is not BBS's domain unless it affects something that is in law, like confidentiality or security issues. Okay. Are we liable for internet hacking confidentiality breaches if we use video? I don't know.
I'd punt that to a CAMFT lawyer.
And I'm not answering that question because I'm not an attorney. So
yeah.
I mean, we do know that federal has waived the requirements, so no one's going to be fined for using non-HIPAA compliant systems. But call an attorney at CAMFT. I'm not sure we'll have the answer though for that question.
Yeah. And document. That's your best friend.
Okay. We recently heard that BBS will allow forms to be signed electronically. Are there any regulations about what types of electronic signatures will be accepted? Also, can the associate application be signed electronically?
Well, we'll accept a digital signature because that's valid in California. We can do that. So to the extent we receive a form that's digitally signed, I presume that we're going to take it.
Okay. Well, I'm going to ask this question. I think this is an interesting one. Do you have any suggestions for a future associate looking for an internship? I was having trouble before COVID, but now options really seem to have diminished, and private practice seems to be like all there's out there. The telehealth requirements for supervision are now lifted.
Correct.
So any suggestions for associates in that situation? We're going to have
it's a tough environment. I appreciate the challenges that they're facing. Typically, as with any individual seeking work, networking is good. Tapping into your association is good. What opportunities are there? Circle back to your educational institution, see if they have opportunities, and then just keep at it. Right now, with the video restrictions allowed in all practices, that should open up a lot more doors for a number of people. And I wish you the best of luck.
I agree. This is a tough time to graduate.
Oh, yeah.
And okay, so I'm going to go to a licensee question. I have a renewal date of July 31st this year. What do I need to do CEU wise? How do I submit? Any recommendations?
So CEU, the waiver, the current CEU waiver is only through June 30th. It may or may not get extended, but BBS is one of the fortunate entities in that we allow all of your CEUs to be completed online. So for renewal, at renewal, you self-certify that you've completed the 36 hours and you check that box, submit the renewal information and fee. And it's only when you're audited that you have to provide the certificates. So you don't need to submit them at your renewal. But what you want to do is you want to make sure that at the bare minimum, you have met the requirements for that renewal. For a licensee past their first renewal, it's 6 hours of CEUs in law and ethics. For a supervisor, it's, oh golly, is it 15 hours, 6 hours, I think, of supervision renewal.
Mm-hmm. Is it 12? 12 or 15?
Maybe 12. I'd have to go back and look.
It's 12, but there is a certain number of supervision hours. CAMFT offers that workshop. I have to say that.
So, but yeah, that's all you need to do for a July renewal.
And I want to remind people, while you assert that you've completed those hours, the audits are showing that up to 30% of licensed MFTs are not fulfilling them. No. And you are fined between $100 and $1,200 depending on the severity of what you're missing. Don't be one of those people. Get your CEs done. People, March through June, have a waiver for another, how many days?
Well, where are we now? Almost 60 days.
60
days. They're waived through the end of June.
They're waived through the end of, till when do they have to accomplish it? Like,
well, there is an expectation that those CEUs will be completed afterwards.
So it's not saying you don't have to do them ever. It is just extending how long you have to complete them.
Correct.
Get your hours done, come to CAMFT and get those CE sessions. Okay. Christine Carlisle asks, is BBS accepting certified mail at this time? And when you are applying for licensure as an MFT, do you need a volunteer letter for trainee hours?
Only about not for trainee hours, no, because those are under the school. No.
Okay.
Yeah, and just for clarity, the office, even though we're not open to the public, we have staff in and out of the office daily. The mail is delivered daily. So cashiering is happening daily. Those real critical essential functions, that's all happening.
You're still a business. I mean, you're still representing the state, you know. Marianne Callahan asks, will telehealth be allowed for trainees and associates on an ongoing basis in the future, or only until the COVID shelter-in-place order is in effect?
That is a really great question. I don't know. For now it is.
For now it is just the COVID time.
For now it's just COVID, yeah. That's for right now, but we're allowing it. But again, that's going to be a really great discussion during the telehealth committee.
I think that's going to be something that we're going to raise. I mean, when I'm able to go in person to BBS meetings, and I do represent CAMFT going to BBS meetings, I will bring up the fact that the culture of therapy has changed. By the time we get out of this, we're going to be a year or more into this. People are going to be used to telehealth and they're not going to go back. And so we need to have that as a realistic option. But knowing BBS and knowing California state government, it will take some time.
It'll take time, yes. And who knows what we'll be dealing with next legislative session. Right now, this one's all COVID. Good luck getting anything through. Next one, who knows?
Okay. Jessica asks, how long is the process for approval of hours now for licensure? I'm using option 2. The deadline is 12/31/20, but the deadline is only for applications.
Right.
So if you submit by December 31st, you're fine.
You're fine. Yeah. Right. Right. As long as I have that application in my office, December 31st, we'll take it.
And reminder to look at, follow BBS on Facebook. And
Correct.
you'll get accurate information of where they are in reviewing applications.
Yes. Right.
Okay. I'm going to go look at the questions we had asked before
Okay.
and see if we have any. Students may be unable to complete the required number of hours for practicum due to the shelter-in-place orders. Will the board waive this requirement?
No. It's really if we waive the hours, it could potentially affect the ability to move your license to another state. What the national accrediting entities are suggesting and encouraging schools to do is to become very creative in allowing students to complete those hours. Some of the solutions I've seen have been offering a summer course and allowing the spring students to continue in the summer so that they can continue earning their hours. I've heard of schools delaying their spring graduation so that the students can earn those hours. So unfortunately, no. And as if I talk to other directors across the country, those hours are not getting waived. It's just find a creative solution to make that happen.
Okay. Another question, can students who graduate in June or May this year and whose degree posts in mid-July and who work at an agency where the agency does not require live scan fingerprinting count their hours between June and July or until you get your associate number?
No, you're going to need that live scan.
For that student, I would recommend talking to your supervisor and the director of the clinic and getting them to get approved to do live scans so you can count those hours ASAP. Otherwise, your hours won't count until you have the associate number. We have been trying to educate, CAMFT has been trying to educate program directors across the state for 2 years now on this issue. So, so that's the answer for that one. So
right, and you may be waiting on the associate registration during a high volume time, which is coming up. About 30 to 45 days. And so that's 30 to 45 days you could be working and not counting those hours. So the delay will be not as great as it was in the past, but if you want hours, that's too long a time period.
Okay, so the question about the exam. So, whoops. Where'd it go? I just had it. Okay. This question was, why does the clinical MFT exam not have a set passing score? It is frustrating to get a score of 90 and not pass.
Well, I appreciate that. What happens with the exam, we deploy a new version periodically. I think it's quarterly. And so each version has a different set of questions. So we can't set a specific pass score. The pass score is based on the questions. And the passing score is always determined in a workshop with subject matter experts who are LMFTs and psychometricians. And once that pass score is set, that's what goes out. I mean, it varies, but I can appreciate someone's desire for consistency, but when you're doing licensure exam development, it's not the same. You can look at national testing vendors like AMFTRB, their pass score varies as well.
Yeah, it varies each version of the test. I mean,
exactly.
This is the frustrating part about protecting the public. Is you have to make sure that therapists have a modicum of knowledge, a shared body of knowledge to do therapy, and this is one of our ways of assessing it, or one of BBS's ways, I should say. CAMFT does not do any testing. CAMFT does not do any testing. Do not complain to me about the exam.
Yeah.
Okay. We keep getting questions about option 2, family child. So I'm going to revisit that question. Because before we do that, it is 12:33. I want to recognize that we said we were going to go for a half hour initially. So if anyone wants to log off, feel free to log off. We're going to continue asking questions to try to get as many questions answered. So we're going to go for until 1:03. So I just want to let people know, and I see it already dropping. But anyway,
For the
actually,
exam.
it just dropped 10 people, so that's not bad. Okay, so let's go back to option 2.
Mhm.
People keep on asking questions about the child hours and the telehealth hours.
Mhm.
I'm going to ask you to repeat what you said earlier in the day.
So option 2, and knowing that most of these hours you're earning are through telehealth, and in option 2, there's a cap of 375 hours. I would encourage you to consider transferring those hours to option 1. There's no caps. It's 1,750 clinical hours. I believe there's probably a component of 500 hours for child and family therapy, but you can still count that as telehealth. So, and I don't see option 2 changing because it is phasing out at the end of the year. So, and we just don't have the ability right now to waive that. So I would.
And so I see someone asked, I'm losing a lot of hours in option 2. You've got, the key is get your application and your hours done by December 31st and submit it. Get it received. Our application's being taken electronically.
No, I don't have that ability yet, but who knows what the next 2 weeks will bring.
Is that possible, or do you think?
At some point it will be. Yes, we're looking at it. I don't know how that's going to work because one of the challenges is the photo.
So then let's get concrete on this. What has to happen for an application to be considered received by 12/31? Is it received in the office or postmarked? So a FedEx.
I'll check that.
Okay, we'll post that on our social media when we get that. But the question is, will a FedEx or postmark December 31st be sufficient? So
in the past it has.
Okay.
I'd be surprised if we have said no. But that it is in the law under option 2, that experience, I think it's 4980. What the point is. Training services. Let me look really fast. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's it looks like, I'm not saying in the office when I look at the law, so my guess is postmarked, but
okay.
Yeah.
If it's not postmarked, let us know. Let Marlene know, and we'll get it into our social media and inform our attorneys. How can supervisors sign for hours electronically?
Gosh, I don't know. It would probably depend on your program. If you've got an electronic, I think there's a way in some of the PDFs you can do that. Adobe.
Yeah.
Okay,
here's something I don't know, but I do have a lunch and learn scheduled for either next week, I think next week, with Robin Anderson of Track Your Hours.
Oh, okay.
Track Your Hours may have some way of doing
that. They
may
have it.
And I'm going to ask Marlene to save that for a question for Robin to next week.
Okay.
I am almost done with my hours, but I didn't pass the law and ethics exam, and I was about to take it right before the shelter-in-place order.
Schedule. I would try to schedule your law and ethics exam right as soon as you can.
Okay.
They are taking, the Pearson View is taking, you can schedule online.
Okay, another question is, can we count phone sessions as face-to-face meetings so we can count our hours? I'm guessing this is potentially under...
I would say under video, supervision, telehealth, yeah.
But so you're not saying they're face-to-face?
Well, no. We're face-to-face. A phone, generally not.
Phone, generally not. Okay.
Yes.
That reminds me, we had before the waiver for supervision had come in, which was earlier this week, we were talking that driveways, windows up with your supervisor, supervisee doing supervision where you could see each other, that met the spirit of the law.
Exactly.
Um,
Exactly.
and it was
Creative
a
solution.
creative solution. Okay, so we've answered a lot of option 2 questions.
Mhm.
Any tips for someone who's still doing their master's degree about starting a field practicum? I'm quite lacking in the knowledge about BBS process and where to start.
I would check with your program director on that at your school. If you're still in school, there's some really great directors in the California schools that can provide you all types of guidance and best tips. So I would talk with that. And if you're curious about BBS and what we do, I would recommend becoming a subscriber to BBS.
Definitely.
Yeah, that'll keep you posted. I mean, we set the educational requirements and what you need to do to become licensed. But beyond that, practice. That's where your education is going to come into play.
If an associate is employed in private practice and is temporarily providing telehealth to clients from their home instead of the employer's office, is this permissible due to COVID concerns and the shelter? It is. Certainly document you're doing this, document why.
Exactly. And if you're doing it with your supervisor's oversight, direction, guidance, I mean, yeah. I mean, we got to be somewhat flexible. I realize we're all working from home. So I can't force or require or mandate physical presence, nor would I want to.
You don't want people to put themselves at risk.
Oh, no.
To get out, right? That's, and this is another example right now we're living it where law hasn't caught up to where we are.
Correct.
That reminds me, there's an important question I meant to ask earlier, which is, if you're licensed in California as an MFT, so you're an LMFT here, and we've been getting reports that other states are loosening they're allowing people to practice in their state. Can you see clients in those other states?
If you're licensed in California and the other state permits it, you're not violating California law.
Okay. Now, that is the responsibility would be to look up the state's laws and see that you're able to do that.
Or check with that state board. The AMFTRB.org website has a listing of all the states and state contacts for those boards for MFTs. So definitely utilize that resource. Yeah. Reach out to them and see. But yeah, there's probably a handful of states that are allowing it.
Now, let's ask a flip question, which is, I'm in California. I am licensed, or actually either way, but I'm licensed in California, or I'm supervised by a licensed provider in California. And my client is a student who moved home. They moved out of state. I was seeing them while they were physically in California. They sheltered in place in another state. Can I, as a California licensed person, still see them? Still do therapy with them?
If they're in another state, check with that state. If it's reverse, that you're licensed, say in Florida, your client comes back into California, we're not allowing that.
Okay.
We still need a California license to treat clients in California. But if you are licensed in California and your student or client, for whatever reason, is in Florida, call the Florida board and see if they have any kind of provisions for a temporary practice, or if they're waiving it.
Some kind of exemption that might have occurred.
Yeah, because telehealth across state lines is typically dependent on where the client is physically located.
Right. Jurisdiction about their care is where the client is. Okay.
Right.
Okay, so let's see. Will the board waive the 6-year rule and accept hours that are older than 6 years?
No. Again, this is a really good public protection piece that we have. Part of the rationale for the 6-year rule is to ensure that you have relevant experience coming in when you're about ready to sit for the clinical exam, because the clinical exam is developed on current practice.
Mhm.
So if your experience is 20 years ago and you're trying to take the clinical exam now, I guarantee you're not going to pass the exam because the experience is so much different. So that's the reason we don't accept hours older than 6 years. We will take hours within that 6-year block from 2 registration or multiple registration numbers, but with just to maintain the integrity and to accurately assess someone's competence, got to be within that 6 years.
So if you go into the second number, you're going to need to find an agency or an exempt setting to earn those hours.
Yeah, if you were already in a private practice, yes. Yeah, unless we get that changed. And that's something I know that we have had conversations about. Yeah.
There's lots of possibilities right now.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, some of those things are delayed due to the legislature being delayed from COVID-19.
Right.
As an LMFT, can I take temperature scans before admitting clients to my office?
Sure. There's nothing in the law that says no.
That's not a BBS requirement, but that may be a wise practice move
Mhm.
in terms of maintaining health. Okay.
Yeah.
The turnaround time for associate numbers for MFTs and counselors, and do we need a lot? Okay, and then do we need a live scan for each, or does one suffice?
If you're duly applying for MFT and LPCC, one live scan will work.
Okay, and then the turnaround time is listed on the BBS Facebook page.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I didn't mention the associates for clinical counselors, but their processing applications received the week of April 5th through the 11th. So they're about a week behind the MFT group.
So, and the MFTs are also in mid-April?
Mid-April, yeah. The April 19th through the 25th is what they're looking at.
And I imagine starting in May when the first 2020 graduations occur, it's going to slow down a little bit.
A little bit, yeah. Right now they look like they're about 3 weeks out. I can see it going to maybe double 6 weeks out, but that's not horrible.
Okay.
And we won't see that. Usually peak application for a lot of the graduates is about late June, July.
Late June, really? I would apply the first, second, or do you have to wait till you have the degree in hand?
No, you can. We prefer having a complete application. It's easier, but in these times, who knows? I would apply right away, especially if your school is doing electronic transcripts.
Transcripts, yes. Pepperdine alum, Pepperdine new grads, go for it.
Yeah,
and some
fire
more.
away.
There's others as well.
Yeah.
Okay. So we've answered the turnaround time. Once the shelter in place is lifted, what are the expectations of the work setting doing face-to-face with clients? Wearing a mask?
I would follow your local public health director, officers' guidance. I know as we're speaking, Governor Newsom is putting out guidance for, relaxing some of the, lower risk businesses so that they can open. Best practices, I would follow that. If it were me, I would probably, I would definitely enforce the physical distancing. And then I'd try to figure out how I disinfect after each client.
And think about what's in your office that could be touched and,
correct.
And take away some of those things. It does
exactly.
It means changing how we practice. And this is a big deal. It's not easy. My recommendation for members, for people listening, is also look at CDC, HHS, and CAMFT and other organizations, what their recommendations are. But ultimately, this is going to be your call and your tolerance for risk and your tolerance for and your need for health. Okay, so let's see. What restrictions or limitations is the BBS lifting, or what changes are being made as a result of this pandemic?
We've sought some waivers to really help people. So we are looking about, right now there's a law that says you don't take your test within a year of being notified that you're eligible, your application is considered abandoned. We're looking to obtain a waiver for that. We've already obtained a waiver for registrants who hadn't tested within that first year of their registration, and it's required, or they hadn't passed it. That waiver went into place with the CEUs. We're looking at the practicum waiver, the 90-day enrollment period, trying to extend that. The exam abandonment and eligibility, all of that. So there's things that really are going to impede the process in the licensure path. That's what we're looking to waive.
And at this point, it's just for the period of the shelter in place or the public health.
Generally, yeah.
Not
or until the state of emergency order is lifted. It just depends on how that's waived. But in particular, I know exam candidates are having strong concerns that, you know, their app's going to be abandoned, and we are working on that so that does not happen to them, because it's not.
I mean, and there were already pretty substantial delays in late 2019.
Exactly.
There are probably some people who submitted applications in May, June, July who may not have taken the test because they were approved until February.
Correct. So we're working to take care of all of that. I don't want folks who were just unable to get into the exam site or schedule. They shouldn't be adversely affected because of this. They should be afforded. Yeah. My goal is to make sure they have, they're afforded the full time period under the law.
Okay. So, you know, you're going to do your best to be reasonable for all these things, but don't wait 2 years. Keep checking Pearson, look for third-party site vendors that can also give the test. Have there been any changes to the examination process for part 1 of the L&E for new graduates?
No. Still be asked to take that exam within 1 year of receiving your registration.
Okay. If you already submitted here's an interesting option 2. If you already submitted your hours under option 2 and are working on additional hours via a subsequent registration number, which means they hit the 6 years.
Right.
Is it possible to submit those hours under option 1?
I would say that you probably want to put, if they're deficient, if they received a deficiency notice about the option 2 hours, you're going to want to fulfill them under option 2. So yeah, well, that's tough, because if you were short,
I don't have any more details on that one, so
yeah.
We'll accept that.
Yeah.
Will the BBS penalize therapists who see clients who are temporarily displaced outside of California during the pandemic? So I think we mentioned this already.
Yeah, check with the state where that client resides.
Check where the client resides and see if you can. Many states are making some exemptions. Is California making that exemption for people who the flip, which is a student in Harvard in Boston being a therapist there, moves back home to shelter in place? Can the Boston therapist is allowing those temporary practice opportunities?
Unfortunately, no. We looked at that, and because our laws are not that in depth in terms of telehealth, it meant opening up the door to anything. So it wasn't designed for continuity care. It wasn't designed for something like this. So anybody who wanted to call himself a therapist could come in and treat clients if we waived the law. So we have opted not to make that available at this time.
And you're not pursuing a waiver on that at this point?
No, I can't see. I am so sympathetic for the ongoing treatment for those individuals. I really am, but when you waive something, it has to already be in law, and you temporarily remove it. And the way our law was structured and written, there's no way I could do that.
Okay. Oh, here's an interesting question. I received a letter from the BBS saying some of my hours were not valid because my registration had lapsed between X date and Y date. None of my hours were earned during that lapsed period. Can I dispute this by sending copies of my hours?
You can. I would respond to that letter and say, no, I didn't earn hours during that period, and provide the relevant documentation.
So Susan, I hope you heard that. Provide your documentation and say, yes, I realize that I did not have a registration number, but it wasn't valid during that time, but I didn't earn any hours, and I'm not reporting any hours during that time. Good, okay.
That's where those logs are great.
This is why you track your hours very carefully. Okay. Multiple testing sites are showing that they're not available for the next 3 months. Will BBS extend current approved applicants' timelines?
Working on it. Definitely working on it.
And the other thing is, look right now because sites aren't being open. The other possibility is explore the possibility of going to another state to take the exam.
Yeah, you can.
Because all you need is a venue. You need a place to take the exam.
Right.
So,
and if you're going to go out of state to take our exam, definitely check with Pearson VUE to make sure that that exam can be delivered to that location. That generally that's possible, but there's going to be some lead time necessary to make that happen.
Right. Don't plan to take the exam the next day.
Oh gosh, no. And I would also encourage people to really consider, maybe driving a little further than you normally would to a site that's open. Because the other part of Pearson VUE, they're not just administering our exams, they're administering for a number of
every health profession.
Yes.
I know psychology is with Pearson VUE.
And I want to say, I don't know if they're doing the nursing exam, but I mean, you're
oh my God, if they're doing nursing, it's the many thousands of people trying
exactly. And so, our candidates are competing for seats that are reduced now with those candidates. And so you're not just fighting with BBS candidates, you're fighting with other professions that they test for.
Right. Pearson has a lot of clients. They have a lot of clients. Okay.
Yeah.
So Pearson's doing both the law and ethics and the clinical exam? Okay.
They have all of our exams. And they administer the national exam for the clinical counselors as well as the social workers. So everything we do is through them.
Okay. So I'm going through our questions and I'm trying to find questions that we answered already. Someone asked, my understanding about telehealth is that we can only do it within California. How do we verify location when we're taking in new clients?
That's sort of part of the telehealth recommendation. You need to know where they are. I use the phrase trust and verify, but you may not be able to verify. So my recommendation would be document that you asked, document the response. You're doing your due diligence. If you've made your good faith effort and your client lied to you, that's not, if you've documented everything you've done, we can't ask you to do any more than that.
Yeah, if they ask for their physical address, that's part of the health record, address. And if it's a California address and they have a California telephone number but California address,
right?
That should be sufficient because I have an out-of-state phone number, even in San Diego. So
yeah.
To renew my license, I usually send in the application about 2 months before it expires. But due to COVID-19, would you suggest sending it in earlier because of potential delays?
No, they can do that. My bigger suggestion would be renew online.
Oh.
I would renew online. And if you have not set up your Breeze account, you can certainly call our office and get instructions on how to do that.
Okay.
Renewing online, it's like shopping on Amazon. Once you hit the place your order button, you're renewed. So it's instantaneous, and you cannot renew unless you check all the boxes. So it avoids that unfortunate or unforeseen circumstance where you overlooked a question. Because if you did, that's going to delay your renewal.
Okay, a question from a student, I think. I've met the MFT hours requirements, but due to COVID, I may not meet the hours required for LPCC.
Oh, yeah, because they're 280.
Is there an extension even after graduation?
No, it's all got to be within the degree program. You can't make those hours up after your degree is conferred. The option that individual may have is to go back to the school and find out how the school is going to address that. And that's where one of those creative solutions we talked about occurs. Yeah, maybe the degree's not awarded until the hours for the LPCC are met. Because if you've got 255, you only need another 25 hours to hit the 280.
We are rapidly approaching the end of our session, so
Gosh, that went fast.
I know, it's an hour. This is an hour.
Ah.
Let's see. There's a lot of option. One, does FaceTime supervision count as face-to-face?
That's a creative solution.
But with the waiver for 60 days.
60 days, you're good.
You're good. And then that will likely be extended as long as the shelter in order is in place.
Yes, I would anticipate an extension if we're still in this same spot 60 days.
We're not going to, you're not intending to put people at risk.
No,
supervision hours.
No.
Okay. There's a lot. I never received my L&E certificate from BBS in order to sign up for my licensing. How should I go about submitting for my license?
L&E certificate, that's law and ethics?
I'm just reading the question.
Yeah, I would ask that individual to go to the BBS website and email, going through on how to contact us. There's a drop-down menu they can select and email that from that drop-down menu that best fits their situation. And it comes into a general email box and staff checks it daily.
So there are multiple email addresses for for associate MFTs, for associate PCCs, associate social workers, and then licensed MFTs, licensed social workers, LPCs, LEA.
Yeah.
So find the box that fits where you are and send. Okay.
And there's a general one if you can't make a selection. So you can send it through the general.
Okay. Has BBS postponed exams, law and ethics exams, or MFT clinical exams? No.
Only to the extent that the testing vendor is shut down.
But you still have to do it to get the license.
Yes, correct.
But for your renewal as an associate, you have to take the test, and then by your first year, can you renew right now if you couldn't take it because you were planning to take it in April? You can still.
Because the waiver's in place for those associates with registrations that expired between March and June. So if you're one of those and you haven't taken the test, or you haven't passed the test this year, you can renew, but the expectation is you want to get back in the queue pretty quick.
Okay. Okay, so let's see. It's 1:01, so I'm going to wrap up now with a little wrap up for folks. So if you did not get your question answered, you have a couple options. Number one is you can email BBS, go to the BBS website, look for in the drop-down menu, what's your classification? Are you an associate, looking to get an associate, licensed already, in which area? Send an email there and they will get to your question as soon as they can. Second option, if you are a CAMFT member, call CAMFT during business hours. We are open from 8:45 till noon and 1 till 4. And you can get your questions answered there as well. Look at the CAMFT website for our COVID-19 updates. Follow BBS on Facebook, and they will post their updates there. CAMFT gets BBS's updates, so we will share them on our social media as well. So follow at CAMFT team on Twitter, CAMFT on Facebook. And reminder that this video will be posted online as soon as we process it. Oh, we've got one last question for those of you who are still online. There's about 200 of you. What topics would you like to see covered by the BBS in future Facebook Live broadcasts? You can choose more than one. Application process, the 90-day fingerprinting live scan, how to count your hours, licensure renewal, and supervision. Feel free to post your answer right now, and we will use that to get some feedback.
I have a couple of plugs.
Yeah, please feel free. Please feel free.
So we've started a new feature called Facebook Fridays with BBS. Our next one is tomorrow at 2 o'clock. Join our staff member who's hosting that event. We're going to be talking about the 90-day period. Additionally, if Marlene wants to post the resources for fingerprinting, how to contact BBS, just some general good information. I encourage you guys to look at all of that. We are open, and just be patient with us, and we'll do what we can to respond to you as soon as possible.
And
I would do this again.
Oh, that's great. Let me read the answers for folks. Counting hours, 54%. Supervision, 52%.
Okay.
Application process, 41%. Licensure renewal, 32%. 90-day fingerprinting, 16%. The application process also, CAMFT has a road to licensure presentation that we offer through chapters, as well as it's posted on the CAMFT website in our online learning library. So with that, I'm going to wrap up. Thank you very much. Kim, stay on the line. We're going to stop broadcast in a moment. But I want to thank everyone for coming. And this will be posted online, and we will be able to offer a CE with this because we did hit 1 hour. So we'll be able to give credit for people who pay for the CE exam. So licensee can do that. Okay, thank you very much, and have a great day.
Bye, everyone. Thank you for joining.
Bye-bye.